next, we have a panel discussion coming up, and the topic is a pandemic-inspired acceleration in digitalization, which is already underway, and how it affects people, in conducting business and communicating with one another. Please put your hands together for the upcoming panelists. Can I please have on stage Seilesh Kumar, who is the CEO and founder of Ixly Technologies, Dr. Karunakar Rai, head of Tejoury CJSC, Manohar Kosuru, director of Vertafore India Pvt Limited, and last but not least, Sagar Nagda, the co-founder of Nimap Infotech. A round of applause for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi everyone, I'm Seilesh Kumar, founder and CEO of Accelerated Technologies. We are a custom IT development firm specialized in e-commerce, web app and mobile app. And also, we do staff augmentation. Introduce yourself, ma'am, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Sagar Nagda. I'm co-founder of Nimap Infotech. Again, we are a custom software development firm. We are into market since 13 years with 400 plus engineers. And we always maintain a bench. So we position ourselves as Uber for software developers. Anytime you want to hire a software developer, we'll give you within 1 hour.
That was a good one. I think the people from yesterday would probably remember me already. For the new ones, I'm Manohar. I head DevOps and cloud practices for Vertafore India Pvt Limited. I think that's good enough. Thank you.
Karunakar here. I'm working with one of the largest records and information management company called Tejoury CJSC. So we are based out of Saudi Arabia. I mean, our large operations are in Saudi Arabia, and we are spreading our wings in, in fact, other countries. We started our operations in Bahrain and UAE too. What we do is basically, in fact, helping the customers to digitize their information. I mean, we manage the information for the large customers like the banking industry and other corporates. So that's what we do. And specifically when it comes to digitize, so I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you all. Crisis is an opportunity. We have all seen this. The recent pandemic, it's been devastating for in a personal way, but when it comes to business, everywhere have jumped into that bandwagon, and they have adapted the digital digitalization of business and digital technology in their field. When it comes to e-commerce in my field, like we have seen a lot of adaptation. So just give a number, like we have adapted almost like 7 years of digitalization in just 2 years. So haven't we seen this? How did we scale up so fast? How did the business invested in that? And also customers, how they adapted it? Manohar, can you share some lights on that?
Yeah, so I would say probably this is more of a necessity made it. Because you do not have much of a choice other than going into the digitalization part of it. So, but the interesting part was not about the investment, but more about the IT being able to adopting it and aggressively delivering it to that level of expectation. We all knew for quite a number of years to build a system of that scale or a size, whatever be it is, the amount of time that we used to take. But pandemic probably helped us to do it at much more aggressive pace, and there are innumerable number of applications and softwares that kind of got built to cater to the requirement of the day. But I believe there are other factors, right? So if you need to really call out, it is the spaces where it is their core area that they really need to adapt to this, and then the other element that I would probably look at is the phase where the the different domains or industries are kind of getting adopted to digitalization during the pandemic phase of it. And when we were almost ready to open up in whatever the little possible way, may not be like full potential, but whatever the possible way, the second phase of it, like the journey that how we wanted to do the course correction and take it forward as such. Because the systems what we built during the pandemic, you do not have a model to kind of execute and see whether it really works or whether you have tested it to the load that you basically anticipate, because you don't have a real visibility of what is the size of the customer base that you're going to hit at that point of time, right? So what is the kind of adaptation that the customer would potentially see, are certain areas that we don't have visibility on that day. But when we started to open up and slowly scale up, probably that gave opportunities for us to do the course correction, and that's how probably the systems got integrated and moved forward.
So just to add to Manohar's point, so as he told, it was more of a compulsion in the pandemic rather than some planning, you know. So just to give you some context, we build a digital gold buy and sell platform for one of the NBFCs, who is the leading gold loan provider in India, top 3 gold loan provider. They never thought that, you know, they will go into the business of selling buy and sell digital gold. But since entire country was shut down and there were no customers, you know, coming with physical gold or gold loan, so they came up with this, you know, another line of product to offer this to the customer or to their existing customer, as well as tap a new customer base to buy and sell digital gold. So within the pandemic itself, the idea came and we implemented it within 3 months, and they had a new product vertical altogether.
Yeah, this pandemic actually accelerated everything. You know, where a project which was like 1 year, it took only 2 months or 1 month time. Any thoughts on this from you?
See, basically, again, this acceleration when it comes to the digitization part for any industry, I'll specifically I'll talk about the data management when it comes to how the pandemic is accelerated within this industry. We were serving, in fact, majorly the largest, banking industry and the government industry. I mean, specifically government, departments. Okay, so we were managing the physical document. So what we used to do that we manage almost 150 million of files, the physical files, okay, within KSC. Okay, so now converting these in fact physical document into into a digital document, it was a huge challenge for all of us. So what we did, we implemented a lot of digital transformation technology within the the banking or the government institution. What we did, like whatever the transactions, I'll take one example, like the transactions which is happening across the branches. The teller is receiving all the information, and when you go to the bank, you will submit a check or the cash. There is a transaction slip which is generated, and that goes to the archive, and that need to be again in fact stored it. So what we did, we implemented something which is, we will build some of the team within the branch to scan immediately to and upload this information to the repository of the bank. So when it comes to any kind of retrieval or compliance retrieval, or central bank is asking for any retrieval, so it was very easy to retrieve those kind of document digitally from the the ECM and giving it back to the bank to submit to the central bank. This was one of the area we worked very hardly during the pandemic, and delivering the physical files to the customer, completely eliminated. Rather, they will not refer to the physical files, they will go through the digital document and they will take whatever the decision. So this is one of the area where we worked very hardly.
So, I would say probably a portion of that is a bit of an acceptance from different fields, right? So government started to recognize that you cannot get everything in a physical copy kind of a space. You still should be ready to accept that digital document and move forward, even if they need to approve or agree upon something. And even the customer, the end user as such, right? So they also started to realize it cannot be a physical copy all the time, whether it is an application that you need to submit, whether it is a security bond that you purchase, or let's say, like, for example, he explained the gold stuff. We have that expectation of the touch and feel of those elements probably kind of eliminated to certain extent, but you start realizing the real value wherever be it is, right? It's not necessary that if you have a possession of that in physical form, then only you consider that you're holding it, but not necessary that that is what probably it taught to the people.
Out of ordinary, like anything that you adopted in your company, for digitalization, like he said,
I mean, I wouldn't say more of like something in that line, but what I saw, at least for several IT organizations, is more of their internal processes. Several of those processes which used to be physical, or where they used to believe that, especially if I talk about the banking industry, where there is this month-end and quarter-end kind of transaction cycles whenever they used to run, which used to be kind of a big thing for several organizations in the banking sector, and also the organizations which basically post their quarterly data to the securities markets and other stuff to prove that they are how the health of the organization as such is. Used to be a lot more physical activity. There used to be kind of hundreds of people on the deck to basically put these records to up to date and then present it onto the market on first of that quarter or something like that. So those things see change. Now with everybody sitting at home, still they were able to deliver, and so that's where probably they start realizing that no, we never visualized this potential before, right? So it is more about kind of an eye-opener for several of us, saying that we haven't really looked through it. We kind of felt this is the only way, and we kind of continued with that. Probably it taught us a very good lesson, and also kind of an item that you can put on, an item that you can put on to think for different processes that you adopt today, right?
So it basically gave us the priority, to digitalize things. And when it comes to market, we can see that some markets have adapted very fast, some didn't, very immune. Can you throw some lights on that, Sagar?
Yeah. So when we talk about markets, there are two things. One is the industry and the other is the geography. First, we'll start with the industry. So some of the industries which adopted digitalization very fast is, banking, finance, then health tech, health industry, the education industry. A lot of education companies moved to edutech, and the retail, where a lot of e-commerce, AR, VR came into picture. So these are the four industries which I think adopted the digital, acceleration very fast. And with respect to markets, of course, it's always led by US. And then there are some few markets, even in Europe, Denmark, Sweden, Singapore, and coming to Asia, Singapore and South Korea, we saw great pace of digital acceleration in these kind of markets.
Actually, I can see that the adaptation was there in North America, US was there, but the adaptation was faster in Asian countries, right?
Yeah.
So
acceleration was very fast in Asian countries.
In any why did it happen, or why didn't happen it before? Any thoughts on that?
So before, what was happening is it was there in the mind of the CXOs that we need to do, we need to implement a lot of digital processes. But pandemic gave, some compulsion to them that they have to. So let's understand what is digital transformation. So digital transformation is done for, basically four purposes. One is either you want to enter a new market, okay? Second is a new product. Third is a new business model. Or fourth is just a process optimization within your organization. When the pandemic triggered, so there were opportunities in the the top three process, either you want to enter a new market, or you develop a new product altogether, the digital gold example which I gave, or new business model altogether, so these kind of things gave a fast acceleration, and adoption happened after the pandemic.
Okay. I just wanted to touch upon the market. Actually, we are everyone here for the business, right? So when digitalization happened, everyone started downloading the app. Everyone wanted to be online and all. So people, consumers were bombarded with applications. There were a lot of applications, in their phones, or they can able to view on. So how can we get a market share of for us, when this is like going in a rapid pace? Like if I wanted to get a market share on that, so how can I do that?
I believe if you talk from a customer perspective, the challenge for him is like to have 30 different applications to do all his day-to-day routines also. And rightly as you said, each and every app or in each and every business is in the question of, how do I get my share of this? But if you look at leaving the core product part of it, so on the app side of it, or whether it is mobile or like an internet web page that you're looking at, there's some standard set of information that we all share, whatever be the product or whatever be the website that you go on with, right? So the customer address, customer information related to that, or like these personal choices, or there's a set of regular recurring set of items that you would order for, and all the kind of stuff, right? So probably there's a need for some level of collaboration between these different players, in terms of either you bring it under one super umbrella, or kind of a packaged system, or kind of a suite of product together, which goes your daily needs as kind of one package, coming together with all the sets of apps, kind of sharing the common set of credentials or the customer information, whichever is needed. Of course, putting in perspective of the security part of it, maybe if you need to integrate with, let's say, a DigiLocker kind of a system, or if you wanted to integrate with the way that we generally operate in our offices with SSO, right? So something similar, if we can basically integrate the systems with, where the customer is at ease in terms of using it, and while he gets all that is needed, and you are rather not in a competition, rather than you're in a collaboration, right? Because then your share of product is definitely going to come to you, because if he has a need, you know for sure that from the data that you have, historical information, and a lot of our colleagues who are basically looking at AI and data analytics kind of a platform can analyze and do predictive analytics on that, and suggest what could potentially be the choice for the customer, and probably you customize the offerings for the customer with discounts and all the other stuff. So there's a good potential in that sense if you wanted to bring together that kind of a model, which definitely helps businesses to do it in that format.
Any thoughts on that, Mr. Rai?
I can go back to the same in fact input from Manohar also. When it comes to the marketing, either you have to have especially USP, to be a leader, okay, or else in fact how to grab the data, the same data when it comes to filling up the application from the repository. You have all the information available in the repository, so it connects when when you just enter the information of the ID, so it will connect to the repository and bring back all the information and fill it up instantly. So this is how somehow I think in fact make a separate in fact area where for all the competitions, all the companies, where they can look at more into this kind of aspect. That's what I can see.
Just to add, so basically, we must say that the brand should look at more of a to be present in the aggregate platforms, because our phone has very limited real estate. Maybe in the first screen we can install only 10 apps, or top 3 screens we can install only 30 apps. So just to give you an example, if Emirates is a brand targeting its customer to book flights, So I don't know if any of the customer will install the Emirates app, but Emirates have to make sure that they are present in the aggregator platform like Expedia, and Make My Trip and other aggregators. And now there is a concept of super aggregators also. So probably I might not, for booking a flight, the customer might not have multiple aggregator apps also on their phone. They might have super aggregator apps like Skyscanner or something. So the brands have to make sure that ultimately what matters is a transaction on their product or a service, and apart from their own app or own digital asset, they have to be present as a marketplace seller in the other aggregator platforms as well.
Uh, what about just a thought, like what about the startups or the companies which is coming in as a new to the digitalization, how can they adapt,
I
they can
believe,
adapt or
I
get a
believe,
market share?
I believe they are probably the tigers in this zone because they are running faster and they are very furious in adopting it. And compared to traditional mid-sized to large-scale organization, the amount of processes that you have or the amount of checks and balances or kind of layers of approvals and other stuff that need to go through. Um so the startups
I
are the
rightly
ones
said,
which
yeah.
are kind of much easier and faster in terms of developing it. And that's probably the reason the acceleration has been done. Because if you notice, the apps that came up, let's say any grocery app or any e-commerce app that came in, were more of uh, not more than like last 3-4 years older ones, right? So this is not something like a big bank which has kind of come up with a new digital app or something, right? So the if you look at the dynamics of the digitalization that took place was more in those sectors where which is more about your daily essentials, your immediate needs. So the ones that you will pretty often go in and out of your house, right? See, if you look at the problem that what you're trying to solve is like, how do you make sure the items that I need to step out should be avoided, right? The items that you probably need to definitely go out, you will find a little time for you to take it, right? Let's take, for example, haircut, right? You probably have some time for it to build an app on that compared to, let's say, you need to buy a milk or you need to buy some groceries. So that is where I see the digitalization progress, the acceleration that has taken place is predominant in those areas. And the startups have basically played a major role in getting into that space. And their backward integrations were also kind of specific sectors, right? Let's say a food delivery app, right? And the level of integration that they need to do is with one specific sector, right? Let's say a few restaurants or a few chains, the chain of restaurants that they need to associate with. And it's an easy task for them to target, do the marketing, and then onboard them onto the system, right? Compared to, let's say, you want to hit 2-3 different domains, and then you have more analysis that need to be done, and then you need to customize your product, and you probably need to define a different business model or a cost model for those specific sectors, and all that comes into the picture. So that is where the fact of the startups were really pioneering this digitalization, and I would say they are the tigers in this zone, right? So they really killed it hard.
Yeah, yeah. Startups came. Even at the time of pandemic, we had quick onboarding, e-commerce, and grocery selling applications and all. Like everything was quick. They used it for a couple of months, and then suddenly all drops it. Like, don't are they not aware of it? Like, digital is going to stay, or uh, how do you see that? Some adopt fast, some adapt and then drop it. Like,
I mean, my observation at least is that the people who adopted it are even if it is a startup that kind of picked up to adapt that model and approach, uh, some were kind of too quick in their journey in terms of doing it, and probably they didn't really factor in all the items that are necessary, and they didn't really do the due diligence in terms of the data and the longevity of their application and the growth path for that application. Or the other challenge that what I noticed is there are too many players that came in, too much of competition that ran in, and the ones who are able to kind of visualize that and were able to get the fund are kind of able to manage that with other diversified businesses that they have, or like more apps that they basically ran with. I think they were able to survive. But if it is more like, let's say there are a couple of guys who started off the building of an app and tried to integrate with some businesses and other stuff, probably you may not have enough support when you really need to scale up, or when you need to really diversify your business, or like you wanted to expand your product. That is where probably they struggled and they couldn't stand in the competition.
Sagar, like similarly, like I have seen that industries also don't adapt, or they adapt and drop off. Like, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so basically there are some industries who were immune to digitization, during the pandemic. Say for example, oil and petroleum, food and food processing, packaging. So their business was going as is, and so these kind of industries where they don't depend on digitization for their new product or new markets, they use digitization only for their internal process improvisation, which they are still doing it. But they don't invest so many dollars as compared to some other industries like banking, health tech, edutech, as we have spoken.
So when we speak of digitalization, where are we heading? What is the future of digitalization, Dr. Rai?
See, basically, what I can think, the future is everything intelligent finance, intelligent, operations, and bringing more profitability, intelligent, supply chain, fulfillment. So those kind of area, I think what the things will move further. So, as an example, if I want to say that, the entire finance department, can be automated in terms of the, invoice processing, the payments and everything. Once it's automated, so you need hardly any team to, analyze and to take a decision. So it's purely, looking at, specifically, the opportunity for the, the IT service providers who can bring this opportunity into the, the future, and making it much profitability for the organization to automate everything. That's what I can see.
I mean, what like previously I was talking about, right? So there's a good possibility that as a future, if you look at, there is so much built in so much quick time, right? So early that so many things came in. I would probably see that there is a phase of, or at least there's a cycle of consolidation that will run for some time, in terms of either integrating like businesses or like products, or the previous thought what we were discussing in terms of bringing under one umbrella kind of a mechanism. I'm not saying that that's what will happen, but there's definitely need for a lot more consolidation to happen. And that is what will probably drive for next 1-2 years, while we are kind of still figuring out whether it is the hybrid model that we want to operate, whether it is a full open model that we will get into, right? Because so that question still is not answered in several industries, right? Because what is the way of your opening up, right? Especially if you look at several markets on IT side of it, they're still struggling to get people onto the seat, right? So we are hearing about the organizations that are asked that have asked people to come to office, seen so many resignations, right? So with these kind of trends coming in, what I would potentially see is there's a phase of consolidation that will run, where all the digitalization that has kind of expanded with leaps and bounds with so many apps will kind of stabilize for a certain period of time. And then it will also give some portion of an opportunity for, like Sagar was talking about, the immune people, right? So they haven't seen a need for it in the past, but now they opened up and they would probably seen as like FOMO. Somebody was talking about yesterday, like you have that fear of, I'll be seen as an outlier. We are kind of more into an ancient technologies kind of a stuff. And that pressure would probably put in still some more investment in that space. And those immune industries will start doing some investments. But I believe those projects would be something which is of a longer tenure, because the scale and the size that they operate and the amount of digitalization that they would need is not in the size or scale of a small app that what we are talking about, right? And the need of digitalization for them would be a longer journey still. I believe that was potentially the reason prior to pandemic, though the term digitalization was there, was not really perceived in the real sense and did not gain enough attention and revenue to do any projects as such, or like to take off at that pace that is needed. Probably it is the time that they will realize and the flow will continue while the consolidation on one side taking place. Majority of the platforms and the teams start getting into that space. So we will potentially see a much more better digitalized world in some time.
So with respect to future of digital transformation, organizations will always evolve. Their internal processes will keep on happening more digital. Robotic process automation is one thing which all the good organizations will adopt. And with respect to the business model and the products, a lot of things will come up with a lot of data analytics. Like we are entering an era of smart cars, smart homes, voice bots, voice search engines. So a lot of things related to AI will come in next decade or so.
So everything happening on a faster pace, security is a concern. How do you see that, Mr. Rai?
See, security is a major aspect, the cyber security. I mean, I think since morning
already
we are
discussed
talking
in the
about
morning.
that again and again. So when it comes to the data, so there are a lot of regulations when it, which is GDPR, HIPAA, and lot of regulations. I think that's the priority for any organization as of now. I mean, cyber security you cannot control. I mean, the whoever the attacker, he will find a new way to attack again and again. Okay, so the priority, making it priority within any organization, I think that is the only way to take it forward with different quotient in terms of the risks. So once I think we have a priority, we have a real concentration on those part, I believe we can get rid of this.
Yeah,
this is what I can say.
With priority comes responsibility. You have to do that. If you have to do that, you have to do it, and you have to secure every way. Okay. So out of this conversation, like in this pandemic, have you guys did something out of the ordinary? Like for example, built any services or product for your customers? Which way it will help them in digitalization? Anything you brought in to the market?
The digital, basically again, I'll come in from the the information or data management perspective. So when it comes to the data management, it's very critical from where we need to capture the data. When it comes, let us take an example like the banking industry. So how you will take the data from where? So how what is the regulation pertaining to in terms of each and every country? When you are touching the personal data or the organizational data, in fact, so that's more critical. So I think filling up the forms, example, the account forms, example. Okay, so once you enter all this information, is that something really you have a repository to fill up the other information? If it is not, what is the next act? Okay, so as a consumer, as a customer, I'll if I'll start looking at each information what need to be filled, okay, so I'll look into the different aspect of the service provider or the bank, which will give me more easy way of opening the account, right? So this is what, something which is gradually it's happening, but it will take time. That's what I feel.
So,
I mean, I was going to touch upon your security aspect of it, right? Because while we say that this is an opportunity, this is at the same time as a responsibility for us, because for an end customer, the way whatever the way that we take the digitalization out to them, if we are not able to provide the necessary security, or if we lose trust because of the security concerns, the journey whatever we have done wouldn't make any sense, right? So there is the different sets of market. Like I think somebody was discussing about Internet 1.0, because there are several regions of the world where the internet connectivity or the penetration is not still sufficient enough for us to really claim that you go the digitalization route or something like that. But it became kind of a mandate for us to go in that route, considering the external circumstances that we are in. So there is a bit of a responsibility on us in terms of educating the user, and also giving them the confidence in terms of how do you make sure that this is secured enough, and not to lose their trust in terms of while you do the operation of this entire cycle of the consumer usage of that application or whatever, right? So I think the ownership lies on the application owner itself in terms of managing it, and then you have to make sure that customer perceives it as the right resource or the right element. And regulations could potentially give us a direction, but it is us as a tech guys, while we adopt different sets of technologies or integrations, whatever that you do, whatever the AI models that we wanted to bring in, end of the day, you're serving that last customer who may or may not necessarily know how to use this. But it is us who are trying to take that additional dollar from him. So we need to
it's our responsibility.
We need to do that additional mile of journey to make sure that we incorporate all that in the system. And so our digitalization journey should include not only just making the products or the features of what we are doing on paper into a digital format, rather than the security that what they used to have before, right? Like, let's say I take a document and give it to Karunakar, he puts in a vault and it is secured for the customer. So that level of security or the trust, if you are able to assure to the customer as such, while you give the digital document as well, I think that is where the true, that is where the true digitalization results will be achieved, right? And that is where we will be able to do the sustainable journey. Otherwise, the quick journey, whatever we have done in the last 2-3 years, would kind of start to become fragile in quick time.
It's like digitalization, whatever heights you go, it should be like face-to-face interaction, right? How I trust you, like that. Okay. Can you quickly summarize? Yeah. Okay. Any questions? No, yeah, we can open up questions. Yes, go ahead.
So we talked about digitization, and I'm here on behalf of an electric company, and we have seen two things happening, seemingly unrelated to us, but they're asking us to do digitalization in a sense for them. So one thing that's happening is sustainability. LEED certification is something that's becoming mandatory. See, in Kuwait, where I'm coming from. So banks and corporations are asking us how we can do an analysis for them. And we have to recommend them to stop using paper, go paperless. That's one thing we have to tell them, aside from reduce energy consumption. But it's not easy for a corporation to go paperless, especially considering that a lot of these big corporations have gone through a huge shift of human resource. People who used to be there and who used to know what's going on are no longer available. So you have this bulk of paper out there that you don't know what's happening. So you'll be afraid of touching it, right? So if I am to suggest a solution to these big corporations, I had banks who still insist on papers, and we've been like, hey, it doesn't make sense. You have to ask the people whom you lend money to follow certain standards, for example, and yet you are not following. So how can I pitch digitization to them when it comes to paper documentation? And how can we grab their trust?
Yeah, this is one of the aspect most of the countries are looking at now. Let me talk about the in fact the country where I am working, Saudi Arabia. Okay, the central bank, it's very clear for the banks that they have to digitize each and every information which is coming to the transaction or the account opening forms and everything. Now, recently, it's almost, 6 months after the pandemic, all the banks are allowed to open an account on the digital format. No need to go to the bank, no need to go to any branches. Okay, so you can open it online, because when you fill the information, it will ask for you the ID. So the ID is connected to the government repository, so it will validate immediately. So you opened your account. Okay, so after opening your account, you can start doing a transaction online. If you want to go to a branch, do any kind of transaction, like you have a check need to deposit, in that case they will ask a copy of your ID. So that's how it's moving now. So maybe this gradually, the check what we are talking about, maybe this will vanish one day. Every transaction will be digital completely. So still this totally depend on the country to country regulations, the central bank regulations. So that's what I can answer your question. Thank you.
On a different perspective for your problem, especially to pitch on how do we do this, right? So there are two things that we need to understand. One, let's say you buy a house, right? You get a document or a property document that comes to you, right? At least probably the generation who kind of born in 1980s, 70s kind of a thing, you still have that attachment of physically touching and taking possession of that document, which is a kind of a mandate for you to have the sense of ownership of that, right? And you believe that that is in your possession only once you have that original copy, right? So that is one perspective that probably people should go away with, and then start believing on, even if it is a virtual document or kind of a stored document, that is still your possession, not necessarily that you need to have a physical copy as such, right? And on the other side, the implementers, right, while they enforce just saying that you go digitalization or like go paperless, you need to make sure that, or you need to understand from a customer perspective also, to certain extent, that a certain portion of the transaction, I cannot completely live on digital, in digital space, right? I have to be on paper. Either it is because of the customer kind of a requirement, or either because of certain spaces only your systems are not still up to date, right? Because if you look at the challenge with most of the banks and the digitalization space is, you always look at digitalization from your front end standpoint. You don't look at your back end operations digitalized fully enough. I was speaking to a couple of CIOs in the insurance sector some time back. So that's what they say, like when you say digitalization, people look at only your front end or your application that you basically go to the customer. If you make it digital, that is not digitalization complete, right? So if you really wanted to go paperless, I think it should start in your in the back-end processing, the business process operation space of it, where you pick up the data, where you store the records, or how you are basically storing that information, right? The classic example was the banks which ask for, saying you go paperless, but you ask the customer to provide a physical copy of their proofs to issue a loan or to validate that certificate. And when you change your spectrum completely, and your process in the backend is also kind of automated to accept in a digital format, that is when the true digitalization comes in. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of a piecemeal activity, and it stays as a vision statement rather than serving the real purpose. So then, if you need to pitch, it has to be kind of a complete system that need to be transformed. You need to invest in all this place. Not only making your UI or UX beautiful and say that, like I give a tab to fill the application, but rest of the process doesn't run that way, doesn't yield the result what you wanted.
Gentlemen, we have to wrap it up now. We're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank
everyone.
you all.
Thank you so much.